Well, thank you so much for staying with us. And thanks again to our sponsors for sponsoring our show, because without them, we would not be able to bring you our show each and every week right here on The Light 95.9. So earlier in the show, we were talking about mosquitoes and Japanese beetles and the issues that come with them. And if you have questions, an issue with a plant, a lot of people are having this year, we ask you to, please feel free to give us a call at Anthony Petitti Organic Greenhouse at 330-455-5997. You can email me your questions at cindypetitti@gmail.com. That's CINDYPETITTI@gmail.com. Or better yet, stop in at the store and bring us your questions. Bring a leaf, bring the insect, bring it in a baggie or a jar, and you can do that at 5828 Columbus Road, right there on the corner of Columbus Road and Broadway. We're easy to find and just 1 mile off of State Route 62 to the north. So we have had some other questions this week, and it is about hanging baskets. And why does my hanging basket look bad? Here we are midsummer, but we're still early summer, really. But my hanging baskets are already looking bad. Well, by this time of the year, we always have the saying to give your hanging baskets a haircut around the 1st of July so that you will have a nice full hanging basket for the remainder of the summer. This year, it's even a little worse because we've had so much rain. And if your hanging basket is out in the rain where it's gotten a lot of rain, a lot of you haven't felt like you wanted to fertilize because you're fertilizing with a water-soluble fertilizer. You never have to water because we've been getting so much rain. So the hanging basket is looking stressed because of too much water, lack of fertilizer, and then the growth also is pulling down on it. So a couple different things that you can do. You can take your hanging basket down. You can bring it under roof for a couple days so that it can dry out and you can actually fertilize it, and also give it a little haircut. Trim off everything from the bottom of the pot down. So anything that's hanging past the pot, cut that off. That's going to give it a lift, and it will help it fill out in the middle of the pot again. Also, anything that's higher than the handle, if you have something tall in that hanging basket, anything that's higher than the top of the handle, trim that back down to about halfway through the handle. And that will definitely help you spur up some new growth. And try to, if you can, if they're calling for rain that day, if you can bring it in so that it doesn't get too much rain so you actually can fertilize it and water it. The other thing you can do is use a granular fertilizer and sprinkle it into your hanging baskets or your flower pots as well. And then when it does rain, it will, work it down into your containers. A lot of you, can't, your containers are too big, you're working and then they call for the rain, those kind of things. And that does happen to all of us. That's why the granular fertilizer is a way to go also to help you with that issue. But if you can always trim them back, and that's definitely going to help. But if you can keep them somewhat out of the rain, that will definitely bring those back up to you. The other thing is, deadheading. And deadheading your petunias, it seems like the biggest one, but deadheading anything, your geraniums, anything that has a spent flower, if you can trim it off, the plant is going to rejuvenate, new bloom more quickly. And it's going to really, really help the plant look good for a longer period of time. So you want to make sure that you are fertilizing on a regular basis, especially, this year when we've had so much rain, the nutrients are leaching out of the soil, and to keep them looking good, it's a good idea to go ahead and give them fertilization. And that's going to be the same thing with your vegetable garden. So many people have been in this week, and their tomatoes are all washed out, literally, or, have the look of being washed out. They've lost their great color, maybe peppers also. So if you have a vegetable garden that is looking a little weak, it's just not what it should be. Dark green colors are not there. Doing an extra application of fertilizer. If you are using an organic fertilizer, you're not going to overdo it. It's just, if you do a little bit too much, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's a way to keep your garden growing. Also, besides like tomato tone and garden tone, if the plant seems to be growing some, but it just doesn't have that great color, an extra application of milorganite, which is high in nitrogen, will help that. Also, if your plants are established, blood meal is great to get back that dark, rich color, because that's a great high amount of nitrogen also. And that's really going to help keep that going and keep everything dark and green. Because, if your plant is not nice and green, the photosynthesis slows up and you're not going to have the plant doing quite as well. So keeping it fertilized, and you should always fertilize your flowers or your vegetables every 3 to 4 weeks. Some people say, well, what if I'm using a slow release fertilizer? Even then, slow release fertilizers, I'm not a fan of, as you know, because they're not an organic product, but actually organics fertilizers are in technically a slow release, because they release gradually at an even pace. So you're not getting a high dose of something and then a smaller amount like you will with some of the slow release chemical fertilizers, the synthetics. So sticking with an organic fertilizer, you're going to be safe. But if you need some green up, like I said, the milorganite, fabulous fertilizer, and also the blood meal, that's going to work great. Now, the next question that we had was about lawns, and there are a lot of lawn issues this year as well. Growing because of the rain, definitely. But again, a little not as dark green. Again, it's going to be the same issue, especially if you have a spot in your lawn that sits in water for a day or two after we've had a hard rain. Those areas are going to be light in color. A little application of an additional app of the milorganite, again, is going to help keep that nice and green. Hopefully we start to dry out, but it seems like every 2 or 3 days we're having, a crazy hard downpour. Some, areas aren't getting quite as much as others, but then, every once in a while, we all are getting the heavy rains. So lots of areas are still very, very wet. And if you can keep them, fed, it's going to be really good. Now, this brings us to our last question. And again, it's sort of about fertilization and feeding. A lot of people have been calling in, and this is every year. This isn't just this year because we have rain, but they call in, and actually just this week, a lady called in and she had a birch tree, she said, was not looking good. The leaves are discoloring. Some of them were falling off, and she wasn't sure what was going on. Again, just like I tell you, it's going to be much easier for me if I can see the leaf, see the tree itself. If I can't see it and you can't bring it, take pictures. And good photos are, close up of the trunk, close up of the base of the tree and the ground, the whole tree, and then close-ups of the limbs and the leaves. That's going to help me diagnose the best. But my first question usually is, after they, go through and tell me what's going on, is how have you been feeding your tree? How have you been fertilizing it? And 9 times out of 10, they are not fertilizing their tree. I didn't know I had to fertilize trees. I just thought you fertilized them when you planted them and then you never had to do anything else. These trees were not planted there by God. So it is not their native place where they want to be growing. We put them there. So we have to give them food. Just like us, we're not meant to be here in this world, but we have to feed ourselves while we're here. Someday we will be in heaven and we won't have to worry about feeding ourselves. But right now we do. And so right now we have to feed our trees and our shrubs to keep them healthy while they're here. And we eat ourselves to keep ourselves healthy, not so that we grow. And this is a crazy misconception. And I guess it's because we're all lazy. We don't want to feed our trees because we don't want to have to prune them. And we think they're going to grow too fast if we feed them. And then we're going to have to prune them more. And that means more work for us. And heaven forbid anybody does any extra work. So feed your trees to keep them healthy. You want to make sure that you're doing that. And so my answer to her was, well, you need to feed the tree spring and fall faithfully to keep it healthy. But get me some photos. Birch trees, her kind of tree that she's having her issue with, are very susceptible to a borer. And you want to make sure if it does have it, that you can kill the borer, but also feed it additional amounts because the tree has got the damage and you're not going to reverse that damage, but you can try to heal it so that you can extend the life of the tree and it doesn't just continue to deteriorate. So you want to make sure that you're feeding your trees to keep them healthy. You are watching them on a regular basis. So at the first sign of stress, you can get something taken care of. If it's an insecticide or a fungicide for the tree, keep your eyes on your trees and your shrubs. And if you can catch things early, you won't have as many issues as you do if I know we're all busy, but if you're not really paying attention to them and watching them on a regular basis, walk around your house, once or twice a month and really watch. If something is really wrong in a month's time, a lot could happen. So if you can do this once a week, walk around your yard and, you can do it while you're on the phone because everybody wants to be on the phone all the time. You can do this while you're walking and talking on the phone. Walk around and look at your trees and shrubs, see if something looks like it's stressed, and then make note of it or take some photos. You can talk on the phone and take photos all at the same time now. So take your photos and then bring them in and let's take a look at them so that we can get things rectified before you have the issues. Well, here we are at the end of another show. We're at the beginning of July. We will be right back here with you next week. And don't forget, farmers markets going on, Canton Alliance, the Plain Township Farmers Market going on Wednesday evenings. Some great farmers markets. So head out to your farmers market and support your local farmers. We will be back here next Saturday morning at 8 a.m. right here on the Light 95.9. Y'all have a blessed week.